lesson 5, separation of substance. Yes, there are 4 types of separation of substance. They are the hand picking. Yes, next one is the threshing. Next one is the winnowing, and the fourth one is the sewing. These are the 4 ways of separating the grains. Yes, which are solid. Which are solid in material. Yes, now let us talk about the other separation, ways of separations, methods of separation. So they are sedimentation, decantation and filtration. These are also the separation. This till now we talked about the separation of solids. But now we are going to talk about the separation of liquids. Separation of liquids. Yeah, sedimentation. What is sedimentation? In your science 5th standard you have learned. Yes, putting some mud and some dust particles all together you put in water. What is happening? The hard part or the heavy particles come and settle down in the bottom. So that is called sedimentation. Yes. Sometimes it may not be possible to separate components of mixture by winnowing, hand picking. For example, they may be lighter impurities like dust or soil particles in rice or pulses. So how are such impurities separated from rice or pulses before cooking? Yes, rice or pulses are also washed before cooking. When you add water to these, the impurities like dust and dust particles get separated. Yes, sometimes what we can do, we can by 4 ways of separation, if we are able to separate, it's okay. But sometimes some dust particles will not be separated. Still they will remain. So to remove that dust particles, we take here he is telling you to wash them. When you wash all the impurities, because they are light, they come up and the hard, because the grains will settle down. That time you can separate them. These impurities go into water. Now we will see what will sink in the bottom of the vessel, dust or rice. What is there in the bottom? Rice. When you are washing rice, all the dust particles will go out, only the rice will be settling down. Have you seen the vessel is tilted to pour the dirty water? When the heavier components in the mixture settles after water is added to this process is called sedimentation. So, what is this process called? Sedimentation. What is this called? Sedimentation. Means the dust particles, when we put water, they are coming up, and that is when you are tilting them, all the dust is going out. The hard, the solid part or the rice or the pulses, they settle down. That type of separating is called sedimentation. What is it called? Sedimentation. Now, when the water along with the dust is removed, the process is called decantation. Yes. When the water along with the dust is removed, the process is called decantation. Here, let us find out few other mixtures that can be separated through the sedimentation and decantation. Yes, the same principles is used for separating the mixture of 2 liquids that do not mix with each other. For example, oil and water. From their mixtures can be separated by this process. If a mixture of such liquid is allowed to stand for some time, they form 2 separate layers. These components that form the top layer can be separated by decantation. What is telling here? What is decantation? When a heavier components in the mixture is settles after water is added to this process is called decantation. Then when the water is removed, that process is called decantation. Here, what is happening here? The dust particles which you are removing out, that process is called decantation. ಮ್ಯಾಗ ನೀವೇನು ಅಕ್ಕಿ ತೊಳೆಯೋ ಟೈಮಿಗೆ ನೀರು ಹಾಕಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ ಮ್ಯಾಗ ಬರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಅದು ನಾವು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬಸಿತೀವಿ. ಆ ಬಸಿದಾಗ that process is called decantation. What is it called? It is called decantation. And what is settling down, that is called sedimentation. Yes. These are the 2 processes of separating the dust particles is coming in the decantation, and the solid particles that is settling down in the bottom, that is called the sedimentation. These are the 2 processes. Now, suppose if you want to separate water and oil, these 2 are liquids. These two are liquids. And these two liquids are there. How to separate the water and the oil? See, when you mix them, water, the oil part, it is coming up and standing as a layer on the water. Yes, it is standing on the surface of the water. That time you can take out that water, decant it. ಅದನ್ನು ಬಸ್ತರ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮುಂದೆ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ, ನೀರೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಳಗ ಉಳಿತೈತಿ. Yes. Let us again consider the mixture of solid and liquid. After preparing tea, yes, after preparing tea, what do you do to remove the tea leaves? Usually you strain to remove tea leaves. Try decantation. It helps a little, but do you think you get a few leaves in your tea? Now pour the tea through a strainer. Did all the tea leaves remain in the strainer? Yes, this process is called filtration. Yeah, sometimes both this process we cannot separate the mixtures. That time we can use another type of separation, that is what is that? That is called the filtration. Filtration. ಈಗ ಚಾ ಐತಿ. ಚಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬರೀ ಸೋಸೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಸೋಸಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಅದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಪ್ಪಲ ಬರ್ತೈತಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಆ ತಪ್ಪಲ ಬರಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರೈನರ್ ತೊಗೋತೀವಿ, ಒಂದು ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತೊಗೋತೀವಿ. ಆ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ, ಆ ಟೀ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಉಳ್ಕೋತೈತೆ. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಪರೇಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ದಿ filtration. Sometimes water supplied through pipes may be muddy. The water collected from the pond or river may also be muddy, especially after rains. Let us see if we can see some method of separation of removing insoluble impurities like soil from the water. Yes, now ಈಗ ಮಳೆಗಾಲ ಐತಿ, ಮಳೆ ಜೋರು ಬರಾಕತ್ತೈತಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನೀರು ಬಂದಾಗ what is happening, you find a layer of mud is mixed with that, which we can't separate. ನಮಗೆ ಸಪ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಂಗೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಎಸ್, ಮಡ್ಡಿ ವಾಟರ್ ಇರ್ತೈತೆ ಅದು. ನೀರು ಬಂದಾಗ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀರು ಏನಾಗ್ತಾವ, ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಿಳು ಇರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀರು ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಡ್ಡಿ ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಈ ರೈನಿ ಸೀಸನ್ ಒಳಗೆ. ಸೊ ಅದೇನದ ಮಡ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಪ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಬರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು, ಅಷ್ಟು ಅದು ನೀರೊಳಗೆ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ಹಿಯರ್, collect some muddy water from the pond or river. If not available, mix some soil in the water in a glass. Let it stand for half an hour. Observe the water carefully and note your observation. Thus, some soil settles at the bottom of the water. Why? What will you call this process? Now slightly tilt the glass without disturbing the water. Let the water from the top flow into another glass. What will you call this process? Is the water in the second glass still muddy or browny in color? Now filter it. Did the tea strainer work? Yes, let us try to filter the water through a piece of cloth. In a piece of cloth, small holes or pores remain in between the own threads. This pores in a cloth can be used as filter. So ಮಳೆ ನೀರು ಬಂದಾಗ ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಟ್ಯಾಪ್ಸಿಗೆಲ್ಲಾನು ನಾವು ಈಗ ಬಟ್ಟೆ ಕಟ್ಟಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಆ ವಾಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಎಸ್, if the water is still muddy, impurities can be separated by filtration that has been smaller pores. Yes, filter paper is one such filter that has very fine pores in it. So ಈ ವಾಟರ್ನ ಬಟ್ಟೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಸೋಸಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಮಡ್ಡಿ ಹಂಚಿದ್ರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಏನು ತಗೋ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅವರು, ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಪೇಪರ್ನಿಂದ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಈಗ ನಳಕ್ಕೆ ಹಚ್ಚೋ ಬಂದಿರ್ತಾವೆ ಈಗ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ನಾವು ಹಚ್ಚಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಸಣ್ಣ ಮಡ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಿ ವಾಟರ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ. In this way, show 5.9 the steps involved in using the filter paper. How to use filter paper is showing in this 5.9 activity. A filter paper folded in the form of a cone is fixed on the funnel. Now he is telling you to put a funnel. Funnel ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಸೋಸೋದಿರ್ತೈತಲ್ಲ ಫನಲ್, ಆ ಫನಲ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಆ ಫನಲ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಕೋನ್ ಶೇಪ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಹಾಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಕೋನ್ ಶೇಪ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಇದ್ರಾಗ ಫನಲ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಬಿಡ್ರಂತ ಹಾಕಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಫನಲ್. ಈ ಚಿಮ್ನಿ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಸೋಸಾಕ ಚಿಮ್ನಿ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಫನಲ್ ನಾವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಎಸ್, The mixture is then poured on the filter paper. Solid particles in the mixture do not pass through it and remains on the filter. So, filter paper ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಏನೋ ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ಮಡ್ ಏನಿರ್ತದಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಮ್ಯಾಗೆ ಉಳಿತೈತಿ ಕ್ಲೀನ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೈತಿ ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಮಿಕ್ಸರ್ ಡು ನಾಟ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಥ್ರೂ ಇಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರಿಮೇನ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವೆಜಿಟೇಬಲ್ ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆರ್ ಯೂಶಲಿ filtered before drinking to separate the seeds and solid particles. Yes, this process also you are using where even when you do fruit juice. ಮನೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಲೆಮನ್ ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಆರೆಂಜ್ ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಸಪ್ಪೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಒಳಗಿರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪಲ್ಪ್ ಏನು ಒಳಗೆ ಬಿಡಬಾರ್ದು ನಾವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಆ ಜ್ಯೂಸ್ನ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಡನ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ಪೇಪರ್ the seeds and the solid particles of the pulp, the filter, the method of filtration is also used in the process of preparing cottage cheese, paneer in our homes. You might have seen that for making paneer, a few drops of lemon juice are added to the milk. So, ಈ paneer prepare ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅವರು ಈ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ ಪನೀರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮನ್ಯಾಗ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ some drops of lemon juice ಅದ್ರಾಗ ಹಿಂಡಿದೆ ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ನಾಗ ಹಿಂಡಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಬಾಯ್ಲ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ದಿಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗಿವ್ ಅಸ್ ಎ ಮಿಕ್ಸರ್ ಆಫ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಸಾಲಿಡ್ ಪನೀರ್ ಸೊ ಹಾಲಿನಾಗ ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದು ನಿಂಬೆಹಣ್ಣು ಹಿಂಡಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಬಿಸಿ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಸಿಗ್ತೈತಿ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಪನೀರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಪನೀರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಗಟ್ಟಿ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ ಅದು ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಏನಿರ್ತದಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಸೋಸಬೇಕಾದಾಗ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ದಿಸ್ ಮೆಥಡ್ ಫಿಲ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್. Now what is evaporation? Next topic is evaporation. What is evaporation? Yes, did you hear what is evaporation, what is condensation? You have learnt in your lower classes. Now evaporation, let us see. Add 2 spoons of salt to the water in another beaker and stir it well. Add 2 spoons of salt to the water in another beaker and stir it well. Do you see any change in the color? In the color of the water. Can you see any salt in the beaker? After stirring, heat the beaker containing a salt water. Let the water boil away what is left in the beaker. In this activity, we use the process of evaporation. Suppose some water, sea water. You can bring the sea water or you can put some water and put some 2 spoons of salt in that and you heat the water. When you heat the water gets evaporated and down what do you find? You find salt particles. Yes, salt particles. This process is called evaporation. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೀಗ ಸಮುದ್ರನಾಗ ಉಪ್ಪು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಹಂಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಎವಾಪರೇಟ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ಕೆಳಗೆ ಉಳಿದಿರ್ತದೆ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ದಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್. This process is called evaporation. The process of conservation of water into vapor is called evaporation. The water ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ it is forming in the form of water vapor and it is going up. That process is called evaporation. The process of evaporation takes place continuously wherever water is present. So, ಈ water ಎಲ್ಲಿರ್ತೈತಿ ಕೆರಿ ಹಳ್ಳ ಏನಿರ್ತಾವ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಈ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ನಡೆದೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ. This evaporation process. One of these salts is sea water contains many salt in it. So, sea water ಒಳಗೆ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಿ salt ಇರ್ತೈತಿ ಉಪ್ಪು ಇರ್ತಾವೆ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಸೊ they contain salts when sea water is allowed to evaporate. So sea water evaporate ಆದಾಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಸಿಗುವುದೇನು one of these salt is common salt. So ಈ evaporate ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಿಗೋದು that is common salt. When sea water is allowed to stand in a shallow pit, water gets heated by sunlight and slowly turns into vapor. Through evaporation, in few days the water evaporates completely, leaving behind the solid salts. Common salt is then obtained from the mixture of salt water by purification. Yes, we get salt like this only. Now, let's use of more than one method of separation. Here we have used sedimentation, decantation and filtration. Yes, still there are so many methods of separating. Yes, what are they? Let us see. We have studied that one method of separation. We have studied some methods of separation of substance from their mixtures. Often one method is not sufficient to separate. Only one method we can't use and separate. We have to apply many methods, like different methods of separating the mixtures. In such situation, we need to use more than one of these methods. Yes, activity number 7 is telling us how to separate in different methods. Take a mixture of sand and water. He is telling you to take here the mixture of sand and usugu and salt. Sand and salt. How will we separate? Even hang separate one. Sand and salt hang separate. Let us see here. We already saw that hand picking would not be possible. Now first part of the lesson sand and salt mix madadaga salt and sand separate madak barangilla kaile pick madak barangilla. So keep this mixture in the beaker and add some water to it. Leave the beaker aside for some time. You will see that sand gets settled down at the bottom. The sand can be separated by decantation or filtration. What does the decantation liquid contain? Do you think that this water contains salts which was there in the mixture at the beginning? Yes, what is happening now? You take sand and salt together. Yes, you can't separate them. So what you have to do, you take a beaker, you put both sand and salt together, mixture together, you put some water and you decant. Decant it means you ಅದನ್ನು ಬಸಿಬೇಕು. ನೀರು ಬಸಿದಾಗ ಸ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬಂದರು ಸ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಆ ನೀರೆಲ್ಲ ಉಪ್ಪೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ ನೀರೊಳಗೆ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆ ವಾಟರ್ನ ನಾವು ಬಸಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ವಾಟರ್ ಹೆಂಗಿರ್ತೈತಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟಿ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ಹಂಗೆ ನಾವು ಆ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ನ ಸಪ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಫ್ರಮ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಡ್. Do you notice? Yes. Now we will need to separate salt from the decantation liquid. Transfer this liquid to the kettle and close it lid. Heat the kettle. So what is telling here? Now after decanting, ಬಸದ ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ನೀರು ಬಸದ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ತೆಳಗ ಬೆಂಕಿ ಹಚ್ಚಿ ಆ ಕೆಟಲ್ನ ಹಾಕಿ ಆ ಕೆಟಲ್ನಿಂದ ಏನು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತೆಳಗ ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ವೇಪರ್ನಿಂದ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬರ್ತೈತೆ. ನೀರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬಂದಮೇಲೆ ಆ ನೀರನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಯಾನ್ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಂಟೈನರ್ಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಇದು ಮಾಡ ನೋಡಿರಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಡೆನ್ಸೇಷನ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ condensation is happening. Take a metal plate and some ice with some ice on it. Hold the plate just below the spout of the kettle as shown. So, ಈ ಕೆಟಲ್ ಮುಚ್ಚಳ ಎಲ್ಲ ಐತಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಪ್ಲೇಟ್ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆ ಪ್ಲೇಟ್ ನೀರು ಈ ಕಡೆ ಬಾಜು ಮ್ಯಾಗ ಐಸ್ ಕ್ಯೂಬ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಆ ವಾಟರ್ ಈ ಕಡೆ ಬರುವಂಗ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. The water drops that you absorb falling from the plate away due to condensation. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೀಟ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ವಾಟರ್ ಹೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ನಿಂತಾಗ ಮ್ಯಾಗ ನಾವು ಐಸ್ ಇಟ್ಟದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ ಅದು ನೀರು ಕರಗ್ತೈತಿ. ನೀರು ಕರಗಿ ನೀರು ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ ಹೀಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಕರಗಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಂಟೈನರ್ನಾಗ ಬೀಳ್ತೈತಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ನೇಚರ್. ಇದೇ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ನಮ್ಮ ನೇಚರ್ ಒಳಗೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ನಡೀತಿರೋದು. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕನ್ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ವಾಟರ್ ವೇಪರ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ called condensation. Yes. Did you ever see water drops condensing under a plate? What has been used to cover the vessel containing milk? That has just been boiled. After all, water has evaporated. So, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಹಾಲು ಕಾಸ್ತಿರ್ತೀರಿ ನೀವು. ಓಕೆ, ಹಾಲು ಕಾಸಿ ನೀರು ಹಾಲು ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಡಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಿ ನೀವು ಹಾಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ. ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರು ನೀರು ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೇ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ವಾಟ್ರ್ ಹಾಲು ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನು ಬೀಳುವಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಚ್ಚಿರ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಮುಚ್ಚಿದಾಗ ಆ ಒಳಗಿದ್ದ ವಾಟರ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಂದು ಆ ಮುಚ್ಚಳಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದು ಕೂತಿರ್ತೈತೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ದಿ ಕಂಡೆನ್ಸೇಷನ್ evaporation. Now we have just all of the water has evaporated. What is left behind is in the kettle. We have thus the separate salts, sand and water used process of decantation, filtration, evaporation and condensation. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಉಳಿದ ಕೆಟಲ್ನಾಗ ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದು ಏನು ಉಳಿತೈತಿ salt ಉಳಿತೈತಿ. Spaheli faced a problem while recovering the salt mixed with sand. She has mixed a packet of salt in a small amount of sand. She then tried to the method of suggested in this activity number 7 to recover the salt. She found, however, that she was she could recall only small part of the salt that she had taken. What could have gone wrong? Can water dissolve any amount of substance? In chapter number 4, we found that many substances dissolve in water and form a solution. We say that these substances are soluble in water. What will happen if we go on adding more of substance to a fixed quantity of water? So, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಾಟರ್ನಾಗ ಭಾಳಷ್ಟು ಉಪ್ಪು ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅದು ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಬರಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಸ್. Now, activity number 8. You will need a beaker or a small pan, a spoon, a salt and water. Pour half a cup of water in a beaker. Add 1 teaspoon of salt and stir it well. Here is telling in the activity number 8. He is telling you to take a beaker, a small pan, a spoon, salt and water. Now pour half cup of water in the beaker. He is telling to pour half cup of water in the beaker. Add 1 teaspoon of salt and stir it well. He is telling you to add further half cup of water, a handful of salt, and is telling you to stir it and kalsbeko until the salt is completely dissolved. What salt is dissolved, till then you have to stir it. And the salt dissolved completely. Add a teaspoon full of salt and stir it. ಈಗ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ salt na add ಮಾಡದೆ water naga. Go on adding the salts 1 teaspoon at a time and stir. After adding few spoons of salt, do you find that some salt remains dissolved and settles in the bottom of the beaker? If yes, this means that no more salt can be dissolved. So, ನೀವು 4 times ಹಂಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋದರೆ ಹಾಫ್ ಕಪ್ ನೀರು ಒಳಗೆ ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋದರೆ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನಾಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ಲಾರ್ದಾಗ ಉಳಿದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ. ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಏನೈತಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಬಿತ್ತು ಸರ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. No more salt can be dissolved. ಇನ್ನೇನು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಉಪ್ಪು ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನಾಗ್ತೈತಿ ಸೆಟ್ಲ್ ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತೆ ಒಳಗೆ. In this amount of water we have taken, the solution is now said to be saturated. ಈಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಭಾಳಷ್ಟು ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಐತಂದರೆ ಅದು ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. That one is called saturated. That mixture is called saturated mixture. Here, in a hint as to what might have gone wrong with Paheli. Yes, here large quantity of salt mixed with sand, while the quantity of salt was much more than that required to form a saturated solution. The undissolved salt would have remained mixed. So, ಏನದು undissolved, ಯಾವ್ದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಹಂಗೆ ಬಾಟಮ್ದಾಗ ಉಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೈತಿ. The sand and would not recover. She could solve her problem by using a large quantity of water. So, ಪಹಲಿ ಆ ವಾಟರ್ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ನ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ಅದ್ರಾಗ. Suppose she did not have sufficient quantity of water to dissolve all the salts in the mixture. Is there some way that water can be made to dissolve more salt for the solution get saturated? Let us try to help Paheli out. Activity number 9. Take some water in a beaker, mix the salt in it until it cannot dissolve anymore. So, beaker ತಗೋರಿ ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋಗ್ರಿ, ಅದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ಲಾರ್ದಂಗೆ ಈಗ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತೀರಿ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ನು ಹಂಗೆ ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಟ ಹಾಕ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಯಾರ. ದಿಸ್ will give you saturated solution of salt in water. Now add some more quantity of salt to the saturated solution and heat it. ಇನ್ನು ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಅದನ್ನ ಆ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ಗೆ ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಅಂದರೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಐತಿ, ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಐತಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ವಾಟ್ ಡು ಯು ಫೈಂಡ್? What happens to the undissolved salt in the bottom of the beaker? Does it dissolve? Now, if yes, some more salt can be dissolved in this solution by heating. Let this hot solution cool. So, ಇದು ಏನು ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಹೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಲ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಬಿಡಬೇಕು. Does the salt appear to settle the bottom of the beaker again? The activity suggests that larger quantity of salt cannot be dissolved in the water. ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ವಾಟರ್ನ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ, ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ವಾಟರ್ನ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ, ಲಿಟಲ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ವಾಟರ್ನ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ದಸ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಈಕ್ವಲಿ ಅಮೌಂಟ್. ಸೊ ವಾಟರ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ ಒಳಗಾದರೆ ಅದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಿ. ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ವಾಟರ್ನಾಗ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. or different solution substance, solute substance. Let us find out. Now, activity number 10, what is telling? Let us see here. Take 2 glasses and pour half a cup of water in each of them. He is telling you to take 2 glasses of water, pour half cup of water in both of them, and 1 teaspoon of salt to 1 glass and stir the salt dissolve. Go on adding salt to the of 1 teaspoon at a time till the solution saturates. Record the number of spoons of salt that dissolves in the water in 5.2. Now repeat the same activity with sugar. So salt ಹಾಕೋತಾ ಹೋಗ್ರಿ ಕಲರ್ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತಾ ಹೋಗ್ರಿ ಇನ್ನು ಯಾವಾಗ ಅದು ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗೋದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಗ್ಲಾಸ್ನಾಗ ಶುಗರ್ ಹಾಕೊಂತ ಹೋಗ್ರಿ ಅಂತ. Now repeat this some of times that are soluble in water. What do you notice in table 5.2? Do you find water dissolve different substance in different amount? Yes. Salt ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಹಿಡಿದಷ್ಟೇ ಶುಗರ್ ಹಿಡಿಯಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಶುಗರ್ ಹಿಡಿದಷ್ಟೇ ಸಾಲ್ಟ್ ಹಿಡಿಯಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವಿಂಗ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. We have discussed a few methods of separating the substance. Some of the methods of separating present in this chapter are also used in science level. So, ಈ types of separation, sedimentation, decantation, filtration, ಈ ಒಂದು conservation, evaporation, condensation ಇವೆಲ್ಲನೂ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಈ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಪ್ರೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಒಂದು ಬಿಗ್ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಲ್ಯಾಬೊರೇಟರೀಸ್ನಾಗ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸಮ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಒಳಗೂ ಈ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ನ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ನಾಗ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಸ್, ವಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಲರ್ನ್ ದಟ್ ಸೊಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಈಸ್ separate by dissolving a substance in a liquid. A solution is said to be saturated if we cannot dissolve more of substance in it. So, ಅದನ್ನು ಸ್ಯಾಚುರೇಟೆಡ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಯಾವಾಗ ಅಂತೀವಿ ನಾವು, ಅದು ಇನ್ನೂ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಏನಂತೀವಿ, ಸ್ಯಾಚುರೇಟೆಡ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಲೆಸನ್ ಚಿಲ್ಡ್ರನ್. This is the lesson, that is the separation of substance. That is, some substance are solid substance and some substance are liquid substance. So the solid substance can be separated by the winnowing water and the winnowing, serving, hand picking. These are the way, threshing. These are the methods of separating solids. And the liquids are separated by filtration, sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. And the gases, which are some solids, also we can do by conservation and condensation. Yes, evaporation and condensation. So this is the lesson, children. You read the lesson once again. You can understand with examples here they have shown here, and try to do these examples in your house, activities in your house, so that you can know them practically. Yes. Now you find out some new words here. Keywords are there. Try to write these keywords and learn them, and try to answer the questions or the fill the blanks which are there behind them. Behind here, there are some true or false. There are some fill the blanks. Try to answer them, children. In the next class, I will give you the key answers. Thank you, children.